I'm Pastor Matt, and this is the Ember Exchange. And so whether we're recapping a message from our church, sharing something from the Bible, or interviewing a guest, we will do it unrushed, one puff at a time, the same as the best way to enjoy a cigar. Today I want to share with you a story from Jesus' life that I think for us teaches a valuable lesson about true Christianity and being a true believer. The story begins it's in Matthew chapter 9 if you want to look it up, but Jesus is beginning his ministry and he calls Matthew to be one of his disciples. So it tells us that Matthew was a publican. Publicans were hated in the region, but they were tax collectors. So they were working for the Roman government. So the people there in Israel felt like they were coming against them and that they were siding with the enemy, sort of. And then it goes on to say that Matthew followed Jesus and that night Jesus was having dinner with Matthew and with a bunch of other, and it says publicans and sinners. And the Pharisees, who were the religious elite of the time, they worked in the temple. They were like ranking rabbis, you might want to call it. They had come to one of Jesus's disciples and said, well, what is your master doing? And he's sitting with publicans and sinners. And what Jesus said, and this is in Matthew 9, chapter 12, Jesus says, it's not the healthy that need a doctor, but those who are sick. And then he says, go and learn what this means. I will have mercy and not sacrifice. So, and this is where the interesting part comes. Sacrifice was the whole purpose of the temple system that Israel had at that time. That was how the relationship was built with God at that time, was through this, how do you say it? Was through this system of appearing religious. And and that Jesus came that we might have relationship and not religion is the whole point of this. And then later in Jesus's ministry, kind of at the end, and this record is in, I think, Matthew 23, Jesus is talking to those same Pharisees, and he calls them hypocrites. And he says, you have ignored the more important parts of the law, like judgment and mercy and faith, and have focused on the details, how you look and how you appear to people and where you pray and when you pray and how you make sacrifices. You focused on that and forgotten the big things. And that's when he says a thing we often hear people say when they're speaking about their religion, that you're straining at a gnat and swallowing a camel. You're so focused on the things that don't really matter that you're letting the big things that do really matter go by unnoticed. And then he goes on to say, talking to the scribes and Pharisees, he says, you know what you're like? You're like someone who washes the outside of a bowl and leaves the inside dirty. You look clean, but you're filthy on the inside. And I think that's a great lesson for us to think, that Jesus didn't call us to be religious. He called us to have a relationship with him, that it's about the inner man and not how we appear to others. And so being a Christian, being a follower of Christ, isn't about us having everything together. It's not about us having our lives perfectly in order. It's not about us appearing to be this perfect and pious example. It's about us acknowledging that Jesus is what we need, that Jesus is the source of our forgiveness and our righteousness and our prosperity and the peace that we have in our lives, because we admit as believers that we can't do it ourselves, that we need to have Jesus in our lives so that we can become what it is that we are called to be, and that is far more important. Our growth and our progress is so much more important than how we are now. It's kind of like so many people say, I need to get my life together so I can get in church and get right with God. Well, let's flip that script. Let's get in church and get right with God so that we can get our lives together. That's what I wanted to share with you today. So until next time, keep your fire burning, keep your cigar lit. Make sure you send us your burning questions.